hybrid. Get me out of here. Welcome to the Mary Poppins of Business live show. I'm Nelly Makangu, your host, the founder of Athena Leaders. I love helping startups and small businesses to navigate the challenges of their operations, to help them to run like well-oiled machine, and also develop the products along the way. But what really gets me excited is to make sure that people are having fun and they love their job, and you can create an atmosphere and the workplace playground. There is one new threat to that workplace playground, and that is hybrid working. Some people love it, some people hate it. One thing I've noticed is that there are three categories of people in business leaders and HR. There are those who absolutely love the concept of hybrid working and they're really jumping behind it, and they are ready. You have the people who love this idea of hybrid working, maybe a bit nervous because there's a lot of things to do and they're not sure how to make it happen in the right way so that they can maintain the culture of the organization. Today, we are going to talk about the third category, and that's the one that's actually, I don't know about you guys, but I found it really difficult when I was doing my research to be able to talk to people openly on social media about that. Those are the people who, they understand the benefits of it, but the leaders that are a bit reluctant to bring hybrid working in their organizations for various reasons. And that is what we are going to tackle today. So basically, to prepare for this, and obviously as part of my job, and I've been talking to a lot of business leaders and people asking me questions on social media. So if you ever have a question, do please ask, because I do answer live. And I thought it would be good to really start connecting and talking about those without judgment, without being right or wrong. And we are going to do things a little bit differently today in the way that we are going to present the arguments, especially for the business leaders that are a bit reluctant, but might not want to come on the live show to really talk about that, for obvious reasons. So today's going to be a really fun show. And as usual, and as you've known from attending my shows in the past, please make sure that if you have any question, ask the question. And we're going to have a guest on the show, another business leader that also have those kind of problems that we'll go through. So please do connect. Any question you have, let me know, and I'll be happy to have you as well. So now we are going to listen and hear the second night today. There is me running the show and answering your questions, and there will be someone that I wanted to really bring the perspective of the business leaders that I've been listening to. I wanted to bring it live to you. So here are the other Naili that will be helping me run the show as well. Okay. So let's start. Okay, so we're having a bit of a technical challenges, as you will expect. Right. Give me a second. There we go.
To be able to share my perspective of being a business leader, so a little bit reluctant about hybrid working, but hey ho, I'm here to help. And let's just kind of a bit of an introduction. I've been growing my startup for the last 4 years. There's about 20 people working in my company. Mm-hmm. We've always had a really nice, positive culture. We work in the office all together. And of course, there's always challenges when it comes to working for startups. All of that are part and parcel of the job, really. But yet, despite everything that we go on, I really enjoy the closeness that we had when we were working within the office as well. And, with this change to hybrid working, and when the pandemic hits, we quickly moved to working from home. And this, again, has been a challenge. As you know, there's a lot of emotional issues and a lot of emotional attachment regarding working from home, and also not just that, the fact that we had so many restrictions and people's well-being were, took a bit of a beating. Whilst at the same time, we are still managing with everything that we have to do. Now, before I go any further, let me put it out there, right? I love the flexibility that working from home has been, gave us as people, being able to be at home more for those who have kids, to be able to feel like they're part of their lives a lot more. People who used to commute a lot have seen a different way of being able to work whilst not being in the office. So I'm not saying that working from home is completely wrong, it's the wrong thing to do. But I just think that my business is not at the stage where we can continue or that we can afford to continue working from home because of certain different ways. I will come into that as well in a little bit, but I just don't feel comfortable having to continue and lead my team working from home. I'm really concerned about the productivity hits that we will have. Whenever people talk about big change as well, are we in a moment where it's a bit like a honeymoon period where people are just, grasping to this concept of working from home, when we know that give us a year or 2 years, a lot of the companies that want to work from home are going away. And in fact, if you look online, you will also see that there's a lot of companies, for example, even Facebook, that announce that people will work from home, and then eventually they're like, no, you have to come back in the office. And the employees, I think it was Facebook, I could be getting the company wrong, but the employees starting leaving the company, protesting, and they've extended the trial so that the leadership team can think about what to do next.
Yeah,
And
that's
you can
right.
see even large corporations are having the same trouble as I'm having. One of the concern when I'm openly saying that as much as I appreciate the benefits it brings, I don't think that is a really good move for my company. Whenever this goes online, I always feel like I can't really express my opinions fully to whether it's colleagues, especially at work, is a lot harder. But definitely online, there's a lot of people who are embracing this idea, and there are people who might not understand the challenges that it's putting the leadership team, and especially the founders and HR as well. And also, sometimes you feel a bit vilified, or you feel like, oh, you're completely wrong, you're not getting it, you're not cutting edge, you're not a good leader. So whenever people talk about being a bit reluctant or unsure about this idea of going hybrid in the long term, you gotta get a lot of negative feedback coming your way. And so that's really why I wanted to be able to come in here on your show, to be able to talk about my experience. And I'm hoping that by talking about my challenges and getting some of your advice, there are other people out there that can either approach you or even just start a conversation with you on social media as well, so that we can really move away from the being victimized or being bullied or being people being aggressive with us online, so that we can feel a bit more comfortable and start tackling the issues that we have, and also make the right decisions for our company. I don't know if that that makes any kind of sense for you.
Yes, definitely. And thanks for talking about that so openly. And for those who just joined, I really wanted to have two different characters here to show the perspective of the business leader talking really openly about the challenges that they are having in the organizations. And it's really difficult to, especially when you go online and try to, when you bring up those topics, sometimes it becomes more of a personal attack rather than really listening. What is underneath? How can we help? And how can we help you with the transition that you are going through as well? And but one thing as well is one thing I like to say from especially from the perspective of the business leaders that might be struggling on the other side as well, is that pandemic is a bit different, right? The pandemic hybrid and the real hybrid
Yeah, no,
working
that's
is
that's
different.
exactly what I'm
Yeah.
saying, and thanks for acknowledging that. See, I I definitely understand that. I'm not naive here. Hybrid and remote working is a huge change in the organization, and in fact, let's start looking at some of the aspects that a lot of people might not talk about, or whenever it's actually good for also other business owners, especially even those who says, yes, I want to go in, but they might not be ready, or those who says I want to go in and I'm ready. Really think a little bit about, are we going to create a disconnected culture? Because that's really
Yeah.
what worries me. Yes, I do appreciate the point that you've made, that this idea of hybrid working is a bit different. We've got hybrid pandemic working, where people feel more lonely and more isolated because they don't even have the normal social networks, right? And then we've got the pandemic working from home. I mean, the real one, where you will go to the office on certain days as well. And you will go in coffee shop, maybe if you want to work from the coffee shop, or you would go and socialize with your family and your friend to get that boost. But let's also acknowledge the fact that we don't even know when this pandemic is going to end. Different country they've got different dates, what they call the Freedom Day or whatever they want to call it. But at the end of the day, let's be realistic. This idea of we might be in this pandemic for so long, but at the same time, I'm actually looking at more the long term of my company, right? So let's talk a little bit about certain aspect of this disconnected culture as well. I there's a lot of people online that says if you are introverted or if you're shy, you're not going to enjoy. Actually, you're going to enjoy remote working more. But let me tell you something. I'm an introverted person, and I love going to the office. I love the energy that you get sitting by the colleagues, the conversation, and so many of that can obviously be replicated. That we'll talk about asynchronous communication later. But those are things that worry me as well. I miss being able to just have a chat with my colleagues as well. There is a lot of tools out there for virtual coffee, but sometimes the communication feels forced. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
I know you're planning on doing a talk on that, but sometimes you feel like if I bring 2 or 3 people in a room and says, "Oh, let's talk to simulate this virtual coffee," it's not natural. It doesn't flow. What do we talk about? Whereas when you bump into someone in the corridor or somewhere else, it feels a lot natural. I don't know if that makes sense to you or if anybody has experienced that as well. The other one as well is the isolation. I've got a few team members that are thinking of relocating to a different town, and I really, really want them to stay in the company because I value them. I'm worried that, out of sight, is it out of mind? Of course, I'm going to do my best. But what about everybody else in the company? Are they going to do their best as well to keep them involved? So as you see, it's not just me that I'm worried about. It's also about the natural instincts that we have as an individual. When the more people come in and see in a bubble in the office, you start creating new inside jokes and new ways of working, and those who are not around might feel a little bit left out as well. So what does it mean for them, and what can we do to is it something that I'm overreacting or over worrying about? But it's really something that is in the back of my mind. And of course, mental health and well-being are really, really important, and those are also other things that makes me wonder what I'm going to do and how I'm going to handle this move to hybrid working, and what is the right thing for my company, especially coming out of a pandemic as well.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, let's just put it out there, you are not overreacting. There's a lot of business people are worried about creating this disconnected culture, even if it's in a kind of connected way, because the most important thing is to know that we want to have people connecting and feel part of the company, feel the culture is this not the same, because we need to be reimagined as well, but it's really about making sure that we are not at home disconnecting and creating new factions. For example, the faction of the people in the office that will integrate and start talking to each other in a certain way, and the faction of those who are hybrid. So this is even more important if you are thinking of creating, like, allowing people not to come in the office and they are relocating in another country or in another town even. How are you going to kind of bring that together as well? Now, one thing I wanted to also ask, and just to kind of help you feel a little bit more comfortable and think about that as part of your planning, is this idea of and what are you doing to assess your organization, and also in terms of what are the tools and the mindset change that needs to be done. There are a lot of tools out there that can be used to increase how people are working together and increase how well they are communicating as well, as you did already mention asynchronous communication. So I guess I'll be interesting to know, not just from Naili, but anybody out there who has any thoughts on this idea of being able to use different tools different ways. Is it something that you've tried? So I think that's a really important question, not just for me, but for pretty much for anybody out there as well, to see if they've thought about it a bit more.
Yeah, of course that makes sense. And yeah, there's a lot of things that we could be doing. Now let's look at, you do make a good point, but I like the question that you're asking about, people coming together. Yeah, that's kind of on the social aspects. So I'm not saying that that's not important, because it's really important in the way that my people are going to work. Well, let's look at team working, right? And bouncing ideas together. That's another huge challenge and a huge weight in the back of my mind, right? Again, my company's adopted Slack now. We're sending each other messages, and it's great. But then I just found it harder to be able to bounce ideas off my coworkers and my colleagues, and I'm sure they feel the same as well. It's not like you can just turn around in your chair and ask the question that you wanted to. It's like, hey, how is it going? I've got this question. That's just gone, and it feels like everything needs to be thought about first, and there's just so many meetings. My time is actually being eaten up with meetings. And again, I'm not the only one. So many of my employees are going through the same thing. So people are staying at work longer to catch up and make up for all those long meetings as well. And so I don't know even if that affects our productivity. I'm sure it is.
Oh,
it
definitely does.
Wonder, are we being productive because people are working longer to make up for all of those things that doesn't make us productive? Or will it be best to just go back and be face to face and kind of cut down on those extra things that we have to do and yet keep the same level of productivity? So I don't know what you think about that, but that would be really a nice topic to think about as well for other business leaders that are out there who wants to go hybrid and how they can tackle this problem as well. So yeah, it feels like on top of all of the work that I already had to do and my team has to do, we need to be more mindful and start planning for what is not natural as well. So that's another problem I have. And then we talk about brainstorming. Yes, with brainstorming as well, is when you get people together, of course, there are tools that you can use so that you can share your screen, you can fake using post-it notes and everything like that. But again, it doesn't feel the same. I feel like I've lost some level of interaction for my team member. They're not coming in and moving the post-it notes around. Sometimes when you are brainstorming, it's not like it's a linear, I talk and then you talk and someone else talk. That's what it feels like when we do it online. So how can we change and break out of that? How can we encourage people to be as spontaneous as they were before, so that they can, whenever they have an idea, they can just put something on the screen, and even if we're not discussing it for now, they're not losing the idea. So I just feel whiteboarding a bit of a challenge. And I'm wondering, are we losing opportunities to create healthy debates within the team whenever they are working on certain things, because we really want to embrace this? And again, I'm not talking about technology just being the problem. That's not something I will talk about later. But I'm also thinking about my team and the way they work together. And I'm worried again that this could be an opportunity for losing productivity and not getting the best out of people as we were before. Does that make sense?
No, definitely makes sense to me. And I think that one of the great thing here as well is to understand. I think one point you made is not just the leaders that need to be ready, is every single team member needs to be ready. There needs to be really good communication, support, and training for people to adjust. I've spoken to a lot of business owners where sometimes it feels like, yes, they get it, but some of their team members, depending on, there's two things. One is how quickly people pick up with technology. Two is change. And we all know that there are people who embrace change and there are people who do not embrace change. There are people who feel uncomfortable with change. But when you go through a period of life where change, especially at the rate that we've been going through, is constant, that creates a lot of anxiety as well. On the topic of meetings, again, I'll cover that in later sessions because that's another problem. I feel like whenever you're assessing the productivity of your team members as well, and you're looking at assessing your organization, those are questions you might want to ask, right? Are we being more productive because people are working longer hours and the boundary between work and life is gone? So ask your people, have a conversation about that, and then you can start thinking of what policies you need to put in place to support people to actually be more healthier at work as well. Having said that, there's a lot that needs to be said for engagement and not being obviously, you set the boundaries and business leaders, but the ownership of people's time when they're at home, that should also come from them as well, right? Because sometimes I see things like, business leaders shouldn't send emails after a certain time of the day. But then what are we doing, or as an individual, what am I doing knowing that it's already 7 p.m. and I've been working long hours anyway, and I need to maybe stop and maybe I need to stop and actually create my own life in a way that I don't feel the pressure of staying at work. So that's another thing that needs to be said as well. But one really key important thing, especially when we're talking about brainstorming and discussions, we are going to tackle a lot of those topics as well in future shows. One of the things that comes in mind is, are we actually, or are you losing an opportunity of reinventing or reimagining what the office could be and hybrid working could be in the future? So that's a topic that we will talk about in more detail with Pilar Orte in 2 weeks. Because I think a lot of the things I've been listening, not just from you, but other business leaders having the same problems, is trying to get absolutely what we have in the office, put it in the box of hybrid working, and maybe you feel like, it's not fitting quite well. Hybrid working definitely require you to be a bit more intentional about everything that you do, intentional about creating this atmosphere at work where people talk, and intentional about planning upfront, which could also be a bit difficult and tricky, especially if when you're thinking about, like what happens when new people are on board. I would love to hear your perspective on that as well. And actually, anybody else as well, as usual, if you wanted to talk and if you wanted to share your views and your opinions with us, please do feel free to do so. It's not just about me talking.
I do agree. I do agree with you. There's definitely something that can be done there in terms of education. Education is a big thing. And with this idea of going hybrid, it's really about change of mindset. But not just for me. And of course, I'm the business leader who comes across as reluctant to embrace hybrid. But I'm also thinking about all of my people, right? So yes, we can start thinking about ways to collaborate and talk a lot better and bring people together, the virtual chat and coffee, as I said before. But the worry is that this change of mindset that you're pushing is not just for me. If I'm the only one, as a leader, yes, I've adapted. Like I've told you, I really love working from home some days, and also the flexibility it brings. But I am not sure that all of my team members will reap the same benefits of using the tool effectively. So a lot of the things that you are talking about, a lot of the things that I've seen online and the best practices is really aimed at leaders as well. And it will be good if we can get a bit more advice on how do we bring those changes and this change of mindsets, running more talks from team members as well. Because again, it's not just me. For us to be effective, every single team member needs to understand what they need to do and how they need to change and work differently, putting more pressure into middle level managers as well as myself, to be able to adapt to this thing, right? Don't you agree with me on that?
Yeah. No, definitely. I definitely agree with you. And I feel like it's really interesting how we've moved into this world of hybrid working, and a lot of people are struggling because it's all about what we've said about being intentional when it comes to hybrid working as well, and intentional when it comes to planning, or intentional when it comes to working with our team members and absolutely everything. And if you are really struggling when you start looking at all of the different scenarios, when you're looking at the different scenarios as well, it's important to kind of take a seat back. And the other thing as well, you need to understand some of the frustration that business leaders, you might not have said that now, but the business leader is the time that they have. How much time do you have to continue moving your business forward, whilst at the same time also creating all the structures, reinventing or reimagining the opportunity that you have? Are you the best person to do that? Or is it worth bringing other people or consultants in to kind of help you do that? Or do you have someone in your team that is dedicated to understand that aspect of things as well, so that they can support you? Because sometimes when being a business leader, it feels like you're on your own as well. And we are even talking about onboarding other people as well. What do you think?
Let's look at something.
Okay, fine. Let's see.
Too much here. We need to wrap up soon. But let's look at people struggling to speak up at meetings. That's another thing that's also important. And it's important for business leaders out there to really understand all of those different challenges, so that they can come up with the right solution for the company to be productive. And that is really what is worrying me. When we look at people joining the meeting, do you think that is we getting the same level of again, spontaneity for people to speak up at meetings, or is it a bit withdrawn? So that's another thing that again concerns me a bit, because of the way that people are. You don't want to talk over someone else, and then there's a, depending on the quality of the sound, and it feels a bit clunky, really. But then again, another scenario, onboarding new team members.
Yeah.
How are we going to make sure, especially if they are junior, and I'm not talking about junior by age, I'm talking about junior in terms of either they just joined the company or they've transitioned in new careers and they need a bit more hand holding than before. I'm thinking about starting an apprenticeship program, and how am I going to be able to launch it fully if my people are, if I have hybrid working, and what does it actually mean for my company? So I'm worried that some people might not feel like they are part of the team. And again, is this going to be something that will affect us again going forward? As a small company, a lot of people take on different hats, and this has worked really well for us. There's a lot of people who are really motivated and love working for us, but I'm just worried that now, because we are not in the same space that I was saying before, there's a lot of things that are falling between the cracks, and I'm not sure they are. And it feels like, oh my God, there's just so many things going on, and I need to keep my head on top of absolutely everything, and I need to get my manager moving as well. So yeah, so this is kind of another things that maybe you might want to kind of look at as well. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, definitely agree. I think onboarding is a lot difficult, and not just onboarding, but onboarding with intention of how to get people to kind of learn and bring people together. But honestly, I still think that kind of looking at the benefits and the pros and cons. When it comes to hybrid working, I always say, don't throw away the baby with the bathwater. That's one of my favorite British expression that I know that a lot of people, especially who are not British, I've tried saying that a few times to even other people who don't speak English as the first language, especially when I'm on holiday or in Madrid and stuff. They look at me like, what does it actually mean? Well, maybe one day it could be part of our Q&A. But the idea here is that so it's really good to actually hear all of your issues, because I think that even some of the people that say that they are ready for hybrid working, they might not have thought about all of those issues. So everything that you are sharing is great, and is helping us as well, or helping them think about different dimensions to look at when they want to start embracing this idea of going remote, and embracing pretty much like the remote working lifestyle as well. Yeah, just I think I might have frozen a little bit for my connection today. I think it's a hot day. I'm actually in Madrid today.
That's true. Yeah, especially when you talk about being intentional about planning and everything, that's a bit of a killer here. Even sometimes I feel like whenever I send an email and ask something from my assistant to do, it feels like a demand and a request, rather than something that's, because of the formality of writing emails and whenever for the communication and stuff like that.
Have you thought about asynchronous communication?
Don't get me started on this idea of asynchronous communication. It's a beautiful concept, and for those who don't really know, asynchronous communication is when we talk about using Slack and Trello or Microsoft Teams and anything, even emails, anything that doesn't require the right response right away, as if it was a verbal communication. Yes, we do use those tools, but honestly, you have to understand that for a lot of us, especially for our teams, we never really used to rely on those tools.
Yeah.
It's opening another kind of worm that we need to figure out, because some people are using it more to have discussions, and we've set up channels to be able to run projects and things like that. But I feel like people are talking on the platform, and then when we go to meeting, we are talking again about the same things that was already discussed on the platforms, and I don't see the decisions being recorded anywhere. And or maybe if you don't discuss it in a meeting, because the meetings get recorded and everything, when I go back online and I try to find the conversation, just threads after threads, there's messages. Again, it's really difficult to keep up as well. And the other thing I'm worried about is my sense of humor. How is my sense of humor going to translate? Am I going to offend someone in the way they are right? Or maybe if they're having a bad day, am I going to say something that might end up worrying them, or that might think that, I've said the wrong thing? so again, this applies to me, but I'm sure there's a lot of people and other colleagues within my company, and even, I don't know, anybody watching this that could be feeling that as well. So how do we stay ourselves and stay authentic in our way of communicating and
Yeah.
make sure that that come across the right way? So yeah, there's a
I
lot of
know
things
there's a
to
lot of
worry
things.
about,
Yeah,
and that's what's
agree.
keeping me up to, well, keeping me up at night, because I just feel like there's many other things that we could be doing, and yet I'm kind of roughly stuck in this world as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially when we start talking about, asynchronous communication, I feel like a lot of people are asking about that, and I agree in terms of the volume of the content. But it goes back to what are the policy that you have put in place so that asynchronous people understand first what does it mean, what is asynchronous communication, how do we use it, how do we use our platform, and what is the best way of this make decision making and everything. But one thing I also want to say, I understand when you talk about losing a sense of humor, because this is real. One question for you though would be, how would you deal with bringing your team together so that they can really get to know each other as well? So getting your people to know each other, understanding each other personality types do help a little bit in that. But one thing I really want to point out now, just to kind of give you, as we're getting towards the end of the live show, couple of really big feedback. One, what are you doing to assess your leadership skills and the leadership skills of your team? Throughout this, you've talked a lot about managers might not be ready, or there are a lot of anxiety that comes from the personal aspects of the just not just the skill sets, but the mindset as well. So it's worth looking into that. Two, assess your teams and individual members of your team as well to understand what the challenges are and where they will be in the scale of, being productive, and what are the support that they need. Because that's another really important thing. If you think that you are way far away and you don't have all the components, does it make sense to go hybrid right now? And that's a decision you need to make for your business. It's not just about going with the flow, but it's about maybe stopping it for a few months, or stopping it whilst you are building the blocks that you need could be the right decision for you. Obviously, I can't make that choice for you because I haven't spoken to you, but it's something that you need to bear in mind. The third one is assessing your organization as well and making sure that you have all the pyramids, all the puzzles, all the building blocks that you have to design a happy, productive remote workplace playground. And if you wanted to know how to do any of that, do feel free to reach out to me and we can have a bit of a chat as well. And again, if anyone's any question on any of the topics that we have looked at today, please do get in touch as well, so that we can really start going together and
yeah. No,
really create
honestly,
a
it would
space
be
as
nice
well.
to hear what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we really need to kind of think about the way we assess our organization and think about what we are going to do.
Yeah. Yes. No. Thank you for kind of your talk and for your advice as well. It's been really useful. And leadership is definitely something. My style of leadership is something that I'm going to look at, and not just for me, but also other team member. And maybe like you're saying, doing a bit of an assessment and understand what are the weak points in my organization. But I also love your ideas of maybe right now it is not the right time, but what does it mean?
Yes.
Because obviously, if I go back to my team and I says, no, I'm not doing it right now, what I want to be able to do for myself and my leadership team, and is having a clear vision of how we are going to officially transition to hybrid working, and what does it mean for the company? What do we need to have? And so that we can start talking with our people from a more positive, way than where we are at the moment. Yeah, does that make
Yeah.
sense to you?
No, definitely makes sense, and I quite like what you're
Yeah,
saying
no,
so
thank
far
you. It
as
was
well.
really nice to hear your feedback. Yeah, it was nice to hear your feedback. I'm going to go ahead and have a bit of a think about everything that you've said, and definitely I will get in touch with you. I need help to assess my company and even assess myself and my leadership team to understand whether we are ready, and also talk through, because I know you mentioned that at some point during today's our conversation, you've mentioned what are the different types of hybrid working models and how we can bring some
Yes.
flexibility, even if you're
Yeah.
not ready to give people the 100% flexibility, especially when we start talking about people moving away completely. That's a case that's really worried me, moving away from our town where we work. That's a case that worrying me, so I'm going to kind of look into that. And honestly, yes, I think you were awesome with your advice, and I'm glad that more than anything, I've got the opportunity to share my thoughts, to share everything that's been in my mind for a while and actually being received, and so that we can start having a positive conversation as we are moving forward. I know that there are many people out there that are listening to this and are probably worrying, so oh my God, what do I do? And it's nice to know that there are steps that we can also take to start evaluating ourselves and our company to be able to move forward. But yes, I've got your number on speed dial, Nelly, and I will get in touch with my leaders for the next steps in our journey. This is an amazing live show, and for anybody else, find me on social media, and I will see you and speak to you very soon.
Speak to you very soon, Naili. And yes, I'm glad that I found this session quite useful. And I'm also glad that for anybody watching, you have picked up on a lot of the anxiety and the stress that some people who are reluctant to go into hybrid working, or those who feel like, just get me out of here, it's too much, a lot of thinking, and what do I do? So just to finish off, a couple of things. First, we kind of try to play today with a completely new style to keep things fresh. Give us your feedback, whether you liked it, whether you didn't like it. There were a few glitches around the way, but we are getting better at this. And it was really important for us to have a talk that focuses on the issues, the struggles, the voice of people that we are not hearing a lot on social media, but we are hearing in private. So we wanted to bring it out there. And that's why I felt the need to have an Naili live and an Naili pre-recorded that represented the business owner as well. Second thing, if you still have any questions, please keep watching and do send me questions. I'm getting a lot of questions now from social media. And I do plan, when I do my monthly plan and my schedule plan for the shows, I do look at this question and answer them live. And this topic of help, I'm going hybrid, get me out of here, or help, I'm going a hybrid, I'm not ready. We are tackling it next week. We are looking at why many companies will fail to go hybrid and might actually go back in the office much earlier than they think. And we are also going to have an awesome conversation with Pilar Orti on how we're losing the opportunities of reimagining and reinventing what the world of work should look like, especially what hybrid working should look like. And again, it might give you, especially if you're reluctant, do turn up to those next 2 or 3 shows, because it will give you different aspects, right, that answer your question and answer a lot of the worries and the challenges that you've heard in this discussion. And don't forget, one of my favorite one is, do we need a head of remote? What does it even mean? Because again, it is really important why I have those shows planned. I will answer during the session, but it will help you deal with all of the layer of anxiety that you've had. And as you've seen from the other Naili, if you need any help or any support, let me know. I can help you assess your business. But until then, have a lovely day. And remember, we are all in this together. So let's design your remote and happy, productive remote workplace together.